I won't harm you with words from my mouth. I love you, I need you to survive.
Welcome to episode 2 of The Last Boy. I'm Steve Fisher, your host. Thanks for listening. The Last Boy brings you incredible stories of survivors as they tell them. In our first episode, we met Mr. Sidney Tausig, the last boy in dorm number 1 of Terezin concentration camp. By the end of the war, all 91 of his dorm mates had been transported east to Auschwitz. Before the Nazis could destroy it, 15-year-old Sid Tausig buried Veda magazine, the longest-running underground publication of the Holocaust that he and his friends had written in secret, risking their very lives. After I finished the first episode of The Last Boy, I realized that before I continue with Sid's story, you should meet another friend, Inga Auerbacher, because Inga led me to Sid. You see, before I even knew Sid, I was introduced to Inga, who was aware that I wanted to embark on a concert tour with the Keystone State Boy Choir that would educate the boys about the Holocaust in a powerful way. Once she told me her story of surviving Terezin concentration camp, I was inspired to not only make it the focus of the tour, but to trace her entire journey, starting in Stuttgart, Germany, where she lived and was transported from. You can imagine how honored I was when Inga agreed to tour with us, so she could give the boys a first-hand account of that journey. You'll hear about that today. It was only once I visited Terezin in my planning trip for the tour that I stumbled upon the story of Sidney Tausig, dorm number 1, and Veda magazine. I'll be forever thankful for Inga for not only sharing her story with my boys in such a powerful way, but leading us to yet another remarkable story. Now, Inga wasn't the first Terezin survivor I met, as you're about to hear. That first experience wasn't at all what I expected. It was sad, but not in the way you're thinking. In fact, in my conversation with Inga today, I share 2 encounters with her that were deeply upsetting and unsettling. I love to tell stories, but these are 2 I wish I didn't have to tell. Hate. We know where hate can lead us, but where does it begin? It begins with words. Words in our head, and then words on our lips, and then sometimes those words become hateful acts. I need you, you need me. You're about to go on a journey with Inga and me that will remind you in a very powerful, shocking way that hate can come from anywhere, even religion, and from anyone, even a survivor. It is His will that every need be supplied. You are important to me. I need you to survive. You are important to me. I need you to survive. Inga, thanks for talking with me. How are you?
Well, how am I? I'm okay. I hope things will get better soon, that we can go outside and participate in our regular life. Otherwise, I'm fine.
Yes, it is a challenging time, but you and all survivors, you know about challenging times.
I've had worse times.
Yeah.
I mean, I have food on the table. I have a roof over my head, a good bed.
I was talking to Michael Gruenbaum, who is a survivor of Terezin, and his mother wrote a letter after they returned to Prague, and she said, I don't know how we're going to live, but there is still a sun, and there is still small, clean apartments. Do we need much more than a small, clean apartment? Not really.
We need one thing more, freedom.
That is true.
To be accepted.
For our listeners, can you just tell us a little bit about how you ended up in Terezin from Stuttgart?
I was actually born in a little village in southwestern Germany called Kippenheim on December 31, 1934. Yeah, I'm a little old at this point, but I'm young at heart. And right after Kristallnacht, which happened on November 9th and 10th, 1938, when my grandfather and my father were sent to Dachau for a few weeks. My father was a disabled war veteran from World War I, and he never thought anything would happen. But when he was sent to Dachau, he realized when he came home, we got to leave. So we moved into my grandparents' house in another state, Württemberg, and we lived there a few years, and that's why I was deported from Stuttgart.
Were you in Dachau with your father?
No. Only boys and men from the age of 16, but no women were sent there at that time. No.
So surely you remember the amazing trip that the Keystone State Boy Choir took with you to Germany and the Czech Republic.
Oh, it was fabulous. And the children, the choir boys were so wonderful and interested.
They all read your book, I Am a Star.
They all read my book.
On our long bus rides, each of them came up and sat with you.
Absolutely.
Do you remember the day on tour when we went to the platform in Stuttgart where you were transported to Terezin?
Of course I do. And the tracks were still there. And I was the youngest in the transport of close to 1,200 people, and I was 7 years old.
Well, it was a very special day for me, for the boys, and of course a privilege to be there.
Yes.
But what unfolded was something I never expected. I know I did not tell you immediately at the time, as the boys were singing Al Shlosha, a glass bottle came flying down from the high-rise apartment above the platform and went right over your head and smashed.
Oh, gosh.
And smashed onto the tracks.
The hatred.
I didn't want to tell you then because it was such a beautiful day. And the whole reason why I took the tour to Germany and the Czech Republic was because one day in a rehearsal with 7 or 8 year olds, I overheard one boy turn to another boy completely out of the blue and say, well, you know, the Holocaust never happened.
Wow.
And up until that point, when the idea came up to tour to a concentration camp, to a country where there would be a concentration camp, the feedback I always got was it's too heavy, or let the Jewish boys in the choir, they need to do that on their own with their parents. It's too personal. And I kind of subscribed to that. But when I heard that little boy say that, and I don't even think he knew exactly what he was saying, he heard it from somewhere and he was repeating it. When I heard that, I said, we are going on a tour where our boys will know this did happen.
It's so important today, especially when you have these deniers.
So when we were there in Stuttgart and that bottle came out of the window, it just reinforced my decision to bring the boys, because as heavy as the subject matter is, that bottle, it coming right across your head, reminded me that.
And I didn't even know about that. Here. You kept it. Yes.
Yeah. In fact, when you walked away, one of the boys who was doing photography and video for us, he took some images of that. So if I can find that, I will. If you want, you may not want to see it. I wanted him to capture.
So it's another breaking of the glass, just reiterating what happened on Kristallnacht, the broken glass night, that this is still alive and well, unfortunately.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think is important for our young people to keep in mind is when we think of hate, we think of it as something someone else participates in. But the reality is, as human beings, we're all capable of it. We've all participated in hate, if not hateful acts, hateful thoughts and words. And that's actually where hate begins, right? With thoughts and words.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's misinformation. Now, for instance, I live in New York City, in Queens. which is the most diverse place in the whole country. Our houses are attached. I live next door to the walls are the same, to a very devout Muslim family. On the other side, Hindu family, and a Christian house. And we are all good friends and good neighbors. When you get to know another person intimately, when you share your life, everything becomes different. All this misinformation just melts away. I know they're having just the end of Ramadan right now, and I told them, what do I have to say to you? Eid Mubarak. I'm going to buy a cake for them. We're friends, and they look out after me. I live alone.
As a young person, whenever I would be tempted to have a hateful thought about someone based on not what they did, but who they are, I often thought about, or let's say I heard somebody, I was witnessing somebody speak badly about a particular race. I would think about the person of that race that meant the most to me and how they would feel if I went along with it. And that always gave me courage to speak up. And that only comes from knowing people from many different walks of life. And if you, as you said, if you don't know them, that's when hate creeps in.
For me, there is only one race, the human race. When I buried my mother, I have very few relatives. On one side was Hindu, one of the daughters from next door, who is now a doctor. The other side is my wonderful African-American friend, Mary. These people came with me and held me near my mother's grave. I always say when I speak in schools, when you have a bunch of flowers, a bouquet, one color is beautiful. Yes, a bunch of roses, terrific. But a bouquet of many different kinds of flowers is even more beautiful. And that's what we are, a bouquet of flowers.
Yeah. And I have often thought about New Yorkers. I actually don't think that New Yorkers have a different DNA to be more accepting. I believe that the wonderful thing about New York is it forces us to know each other, and therefore we learn to tolerate. I've seen people who were very tolerant move out of New York City and for whatever reason end up in a place in the country where they were isolated and living with people that all looked the same. And before long, they were less tolerant.
Yeah, could be like a disease, you absorb it, like this virus that we have right now. And hatred is a virus that can come to anybody unless you have the antidote to go against that virus. Mm-hmm. And that is your heart, like a vaccine. This is your vaccine.
That's a great analogy.
I'm not different from my neighbors. I don't care if they have a different holiday. We all have one God. He may have different names. All religions preach goodness, and you should love your neighbor.
Was your family religious before the Nazis came to power?
Yes, we were modern Orthodox. And I never lost that, really. I mean, I'm not as religious as I was, but I still believe in God.
We also know that religion can be the facilitator of hate. And
yes, it can.
And I think it stems from the fact that organized religion by its very nature excludes people. And if you look at history, all the major religions have probably taken a turn at being hateful towards others because they don't believe what is subscribed.
Each religion is like a club. Don't marry out. If you're a Muslim, marry a Muslim. If you're a Jew, marry a Jew.
I have a funny story, Inga. So one of my boys' parents came to me once and said, my son came to me and told me he was gay, and I know that you are, and I was wondering if you could talk to him about it. And at first I said, well, I'm not really sure that that's my place as his choir director, but she really insisted, in part because he didn't have a father. And so I said, well, as long as you're in the room or nearby, I'm happy to affirm him. And so that happened, and it was very nice. And then she came back to me about 6 months later, and she said, "You need to talk to my son." And I said, "Why?" She said, "Well, he has a boyfriend, and I'm very happy for that, except he's not Jewish. And would you please tell him he must date only Jewish boys?"
You see, there you go.
And I said, "I understand why people often marry within a religion, because when you're raised in a religion, even if you're not overly religious, you do have a similar outlook on life and similar values. But I cannot in good conscience tell him you have to basically discriminate against this person. I just couldn't bring myself to do it." Her being a good Jewish mother, "Okay, you're gay, fine, but please find a nice Jewish boy."
Well, that's how it goes. Yeah.
Thinking about the fact that hate is something that we're all susceptible to. Unfortunately, the darker side of human existence, there's always that potential for hate. I think it's because we are a species that tends to find solace in being part of a group. But again, the very nature of a group is there are people in and there are people out, and we have to be careful of that.
We're not all the same, but to be accepting and learn from each other.
Yeah, because variety is the spice of life, and
exactly. I guess that's my bouquet of flowers.
Right, and it's a great joy for you to know your neighbors of different traditions, and that's what makes life so interesting. So it's fine for people to be of a certain flock, but you don't always have to stick together. You can hang out with different people.
One day I speak to a new Facebook friend in Turkey. The next day it's Sicily. I mean, we become very united. Look at this book that went to every single community in the world. Every single community, even the smallest. It's in Kippenheim, my hometown.
Yeah.
We are one world today of different groups. And different values, different people, different ways of life, and yet we are one.
What struck me, Inga, when we were in Terezin, was when you spoke of, and this goes back to that as human beings, we're all capable of hate, and we always have to be on guard, and we have to always be careful not to exclude and make people feel like they're out. I remember you telling me how hurtful it was to you, the fact that you weren't included in Brundabar, that Brundabar was just for the Czech children.
Czech children weren't all that enamored with us. We were not that many. We were in a minority, but I was allowed to live with my parents.
Why was it that you were able to live with your family?
Because my father was a disabled war veteran, and they kept those in a few houses with their children, but it didn't save you from Auschwitz. We had no idea of Auschwitz, by the way. We only knew of the East. It was probably more dangerous to go to the East. And during the last years, in 1944, they were going after the disabled war veterans who had arms missing, legs missing, a shot in the head. Those were our hero fathers. And they all had high awards, Iron Cross 1, 2, and my girlfriend's parents were Abraham. We are our back according to the A. You know, Germans, the A, the B, the C. My father had to go to a lady with a typewriter. She put a red circle around her name. We didn't know what it meant. And my girlfriend's father didn't have to go to that lady. And it turned out within a few weeks, they were in the transport. We had the same doll. She gave me some of her doll's clothing. She said, look, you'll give it back to me. We'll visit each other. Of course, that never happened.
So you remained in Terezin to the end?
Till the end, yes, on May 8th, 1945, by the Soviet Army. And I found out who it was. And last year, when I was invited to Russia, I went to the grave, General Ribal, and I put flowers on his grave, and we said prayers. The secretary of the chief rabbi there sent a man. Usually, you know, when they're very orthodox, a woman shouldn't say all these prayers. A man has to stand there and say it. Well, he said the Tehillim, you know, the prayers of thankfulness.
You mentioned, Inga, men typically saying prayers. I remember vividly
the moment that I realized that hate is possible in any situation between anybody. There was a Jewish father who allowed his daughter to stand at the Wailing Wall, and there was a Orthodox Jew who took great offense to this, and his response to the father was, Hitler should have finished your family off.
Oh my God, how horrible. I went to an Orthodox synagogue where the women and men are also separated. These are these, Eastern religions like Muslims do. And you could only look out with this little, hole in the cement. And I was really angry. I said, I'm as good as these men are. Why?
Right.
But this is
the challenge and the juncture of organized religion and the beauty of the traditions of a particular religion. And on the other side of that is exclusion. And that for me is where we always have to be careful. There's nothing wrong with tradition, but there's going to be that moment where tradition means exclusion.
I felt very diminished. I tell you, I was so furious. The prayers were said in the main hall, and we have to be sitting behind the cement wall. It really bothered me. I said, look, if you wouldn't have women, you wouldn't have children, period.
But any religion has their extreme factions. Yeah. Judaism or Muslims or Catholics, if you look at that certain end of the spectrum, the exclusion can be pretty intense.
It can be intense, yes.
Look at the Catholic Church. Often the Pope will praise women and canonize them, and it certainly is sincere, but at the same time, how does it feel to be a woman who's Catholic and know that you're not good enough to be a priest? I told you the one story that I'm sorry that I had to tell you. And I have another one that also I'm sorry to have to tell. And I remember taking the train with you back from the airport in Philadelphia. We took the trip back to New York.
Yes, we did.
And I remember telling you that I had this experience that I didn't really want to share with anybody. So meeting a survivor for the first time was such an honor for me. And when this person handed me her star, while she was getting it out, she was telling another story. And literally, as the star landed in my hand, she referred to some faggot. And I was speechless, in part because I'm gay. I didn't say anything because I thought maybe I misunderstood. And then she went on to say that derogatory word, faggot, in like 4 or 5 different languages. And holding that star, which I thought would be the honor of my life, suddenly didn't mean anything. Because I realized here was a person who had went through hell because of hatred and had spent her life telling young people, you must not hate. And then she was using a hateful word.
It is ignorance, really. I'm sorry. She was preaching tolerance, and yet she was ignorant and to hurt another person. And that's not allowable. So she hasn't really learned her lesson. I'm sorry.
I don't bring that up to cast aspersions or to judge this person, but just it's a good reminder that
hate is everywhere.
If you are human, sadly, part of our nature is you are capable of hate, and we all must stay vigilant.
We have to fight against this. That's why I still speak. The job is probably never will be finished, because there's always be finger pointing to what is different.
It goes back, Inga, to what you said at the beginning of our conversation, how important it is to know people of different walks of life. That person that said that, she didn't really ever know or love somebody who was gay, because if she did, she would not have said that.
Yeah. And she has not learned the lesson of tolerance. She hasn't opened her heart, let's put it this way. She continued the stereotyping, like somebody who hates the Jewish people, who will continue to hate until he has this aha moment when he meets somebody whom he really or she really likes, and that they're just as human as they are.
Yeah.
Obviously, she didn't have it yet.
I always wanted to find the opportunity to meet with her and just to say that this thing had happened and that it made me sad. And I wanted to give her the chance to say, wow, I'm sorry.
I'm really hurt.
Unfortunately, she passed, and rest in peace. Yeah. It's not about finger
That's
pointing,
right.
but just reminders.
I had a similar experience.
You do have to give people the chance and the room to change.
Yes, but they will have to want to do it in their heart. It takes a lot of overcoming to get rid of this cancer, or like today, to get rid of this bug, this virus. And you have to find the antidote. You have to give your heart a shove. We all pretty much want the same things in life: to be happy, to have enough food, to be comfortable,
to be able to go to the hairdressers.
Oh, yeah, which I can't go right now, so I have to wear a wig. If you would see me right now, not to scare you. Not too long ago, coming home with a cab driver, we got into a wonderful conversation. He said to me, "Oh, you're the nicest passenger I ever had." And we got a little bit into religions and stuff. So he said to me, he didn't know who I was. He said, "Oh, one people I don't like," he said, "the Jews." And I didn't say a word.
Yeah.
And I said, if I say something, well, you're driving a Jew right now, and you just told me I'm the nicest person he ever met, driving around. And I said, if I say that, he'll throw me out. So
you should have said it.
I gave him a nice tip, and I said goodbye. And then later on, I said, you fool. You should have told him. See? We're not all alike, you see. They're good people, bad people.
Yeah.
Maybe you had terrible experience. Now you had a nice experience.
Well, you certainly were the better person for still tipping him, but that would have been an amazing moment to say, the nicest person you ever drove is Jewish, and here's a nice tip. Thank you so much. I guess we have another little bond then, Inga, because looking back, I regret not saying in that moment nicely, not angry.
Mm-hmm. Guess what?
You've made me very sad, because I was in her house and I thought she would kick me out. The next time we have a chance to nicely say, wow, that really hurt my feelings, and here's a nice tip. And then run.
Yeah, but you see, then we are the failures. But we were scared to hurt somebody else, or afraid for, of the consequences.
I think that is a very valid point, that if I look back on that moment, why I didn't say anything is that we come from a place where we don't want to embarrass other people either. And that would have been deeply embarrassing.
Yes. But it would have been the aha moment for the other person, that you have to be careful what you speak.
Yeah.
You have to be careful.
Yeah.
And yes, there is this feeling of separateness, and I'm the right one, and whatever is not familiar to me is something that you don't like or hate or whatever. A stronger word is hate. And I think a lot of us do have that in the depths of our hearts. We may not show it, but it comes out at a certain.
Well, look, human beings we are animals, and
only we have two legs.
Right, and credit cards.
And credit cards.
But we're called to have a certain dignity, and so I think it's so important to acknowledge that primal instinct to be part of a group and to say, I'm part of this and you're not. And what we have to learn to say is, I'm part of this and you're not, but you're still also awesome in your own group.
Yeah, that takes a long time for that to happen. And that's, I think, what we are striving for. And I don't know if we will ever reach it, this aha moment where we can be all together, but we can try, at least to not to make it worse than it is, to learn, at least to be on the road to be a better person, to break down those fences, to break down that barbed wire that separates us.
Yeah. Well, Inga, it has been so great talking to you again.
Thank you. And you too. We have a wonderful, wonderful saying. The Hebrew word for shalom. It means hello, goodbye, and peace be with you. The Muslims have that too. Shalom aleichem. They say salam alaikum. So that they look at me when I say that, I salam alaikum. So then, they answer me, salam, and they said salam alaikum. So I said, yes, that's what we should have.
Yeah. Well, you're a great ambassador for that, Inga, and I'm proud. And
I hope I'm
proud
thank you.
To know you.
So are you. So are
be your friend.
Let's hope that we all will live to at least 120. That's what Moses lived. But I want 121.
I'm sure.
So I wish you 121 years. And I hope you make it. Maybe to 122.
All right, my dear.
Okay, thank you so much,
care.
Steve. It was
Yeah.
a pleasure. It was
Yeah.
a pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Stand with me, agree with me, we're all.
I'm Steve Fisher. Thanks for listening. If you're already a member, you're awesome. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. You can do that at fishermanpodcasts.com. That's man with 2 N's. fishermanpodcasts.com. There, members can view photos and video of Inga and the Keystone State Boy Choir at the train platform in Stuttgart, where we commemorated her deportation to Terezin. You can also download our featured song in today's episode, I Need You to Survive, as sung by the Boy Choir and soloist Nick Trawick. Until next time, Shalom.
I pray for you, and you pray for me. I love you, I need you to survive. I won't harm you with words from my mouth. I love you, I need